Representative Gonzalez, you and I have had this conversation before in which we describe how this is a solution in search of a problem, but they've jumped the shark on this one. The 13 counties they're investigating, 3 of them, Collin, Denton, and Montgomery County, voted for Trump in a state that Donald Trump won. Are we now relitigating elections for the sake of it, or once you've glommed onto the big lie, you can't get off that train? You just got to keep on counting votes.
Yes. I mean, from the very beginning, during the regular session, when it started in January, I mean, it became clear to me and many of my fellow Democratic colleagues in the Texas House that Republican leadership would attempt to pass some sort of harmful voter suppression legislation that was based on the big lie, that somehow Donald Trump actually won the election in 2020. And when we spoke up about it, we were dismissed, we were disrespected. And now by filing this bill, they're not even denying their intention here anymore. Texas Republicans are pushing this narrative even further. Also, they can get an endorsement from the former disgraced president for their primary races, and so this is all what it is. It's all they're putting politics over the people.
It's very strange, Representative Johnson, because the things that they are imposing, the things that you have all left to prevent from being passed, again, are problems that were not problems in the election. So when we talk about 24-hour voting or drive-through voting or prohibiting elections from proactively sending out absentee ballot applications to those who have not requested them, increasing criminal penalties for election workers who run afoul of regulations, none of these things actually happened in the election.
Exactly. There was no voter fraud in the state of Texas. And the crazy thing is that the author of this bill is from Montgomery County. And so he's basically wanting an audit of his own election that he won. And so it absolutely makes no sense whatsoever. This really is an attempt for them to try to justify filing these oppressive voter bills to keep Democrats and to keep young people, to keep elderly people, to keep disabled people, to keep people of color, to keep busy moms with too big a schedule from voting. They're trying to slim the margins at the end to try to retain power. And these sorts of tactics are what they're trying to do. They have not had public opinion in their election bill, so they're having to file this kind of stuff to justify what they're doing.
Representative Gonzalez, Vice President Harris today met with poll workers and election officials about the threats that they're facing and the challenges they're facing. Let's listen to a little of it.
You're the people who make elections happen. We dare not take the work of poll workers for granted. And I think we do. But the work of poll workers, unencumbered, without intimidation, without threats, should be a commitment that we all have, not only to them who serve, but to our democracy.
Representative Gonzalez, we've all gone to polls and seen who these poll workers are. They are the symbol of civil service. They are people, volunteers in some cases, paid in some cases, who are doing the work that allows our democracy to continue. In Texas, there are all sorts of things going on that would lead to the intimidation of, the possible criminalization of, and the removal of bipartisanship or nonpartisanship from some of these roles.
Yes, and so one of the big problems with that is that it's already hard for us to find poll workers as it is, and so legislation that adds a violation, a criminal sanction to poll workers for simply denying access to a poll watcher, given and even if they've had a problem with them in the past before, that is not enough. The way that this bill HB3 is written is that it limits it gives untrained partisan poll watchers unfettered access to roam a polling location, while also limiting the power of a poll worker to be able to conduct the elections. And so, that's a slippery slope for us to go down, and the language of the bill makes it really hard for a poll worker to remove a disruptive poll watcher. So, for example, even just intimidating someone or standing too closely to someone, that is not enough to rise to the level to where a poll worker can remove a person from a polling location, and not to mention the fact that a person gets one free felony, right? So they have to have already been warned once before that, before it could even rise to that level. And the laws and the provision is unclear as to whether the person has to violate the same. If it has to be the same violation under the code, and so it's a really dangerous thing for Texas to go down a very dangerous path, because people they're not gonna, when they're feeling intimidated, they're just gonna leave and they're not gonna come back to vote, and so that provision is very, very problematic.
Representative Johnson, let's just go down that road a little more, because for those of us who have never faced intimidation at a poll, it seems very obvious to say, you can't intimidate me. I'm going to go. I'm registered to vote. I'm going to cast my ballot. And if somebody does anything with me, I'll call the police. That's not the history of this country. Voter intimidation, polling place intimidation plays a very, very big role. And what Texas is saying in some of this legislation is we're okay with some of that.
That's exactly what they're saying. And what they're really trying to do is, imagine the insurrectionists that stormed the Capitol on January 6th. A lot of them were from Texas. Even one was a state representative, a Republican from Texas. And they're trying to, those are the kinds of people that can be recruited, and they want to send them down into especially minority neighborhoods where a lot of times we're trying to get new registered voters that might be first-time voters to be able to stand over them, even possibly review their ballot and just be disruptive. And just as if my colleague Jessica was saying, and the election workers are very limited in order to kick them out. So it's a huge problem.